Hello, I'm Brandy Agerbeck of loosetooth.com, and today's Studio Tuesday, I am drawing large. Today's Inktober prompt is gigantic. So I made sure I went into my inventory of markers and I found my Montana empty marker that's been filled with Neuland ink so that I can make some super giant marks on today's drawing. So this Montana marker, which was originally created for acrylic paint, this is 55. This is a 55 millimeter nib. So this gorgeous giant nib. And I actually first mixed this color of ink for a performance I did with Chad Calise for something called 20 by 2. So I'll add a link below to this 2-minute performance of synesthesia with Chad playing stand-up bass and me making a giant drawing. But that is originally why I mixed this beautiful color of sort of Lake Michigan blue and added it to this Montana marker. So this kind of marker gets this kind of gorgeous giant line. And generally, when I'm doing graphic facilitation work, I'm using these big one markers from Neuland. So these guys are, the tip is anywhere from 6 to 12 millimeters. So 12 millimeters if you're going this wide width of the pen, and 6 millimeters if you're going working this on the side here. And in my kit, I have normal sort of number 1 size markers, but most of the time I use this guy. I use these guys. Because of the chisel tip, I'm able to turn the marker and get different kinds of lines out of one single chisel tip marker. So I know on Facebook Live, this text in the drawing is going to be flipped. It's going to be mirror image. It's going to be backwards. I got it. This is a case of I'm using my cell phone to create these Facebook Live videos and still working out how to create a setup where I can show text and have it be normal. But that hasn't been done yet. So in the meantime, this is what you get on Facebook, and then I flip the video and upload it to YouTube. But I just wanted to share with you this drawing that really does describe what my favorite aspects of drawing as a thinking tool are. So, you know, one of the big things when folks talk to me about being a graphic facilitator when I'm doing this work, you know, so often what people tune into is that the work is visual. Absolutely, undeniably. So, you know, this visual idea. And there is no doubt that I'm a visual thinker, that I'm a visual learner. But personally, one of the things I love so much about this work is that I get to work with my whole body. It really is this aspect of the work that it's kinesthetic and hands-on. That, you know, it's not sort of being in a chair sort of crunched up over a little drawing. It really is this fact that, you know, I'm moving my whole body as I'm making these drawings. You know, moving around the page, standing, listening with my whole body as I work with my clients. So I absolutely believe that maybe even more so than being a visual learner and visual thinker, I have always been a hands-on learner. All my favorite classes have always been the ones with labs, the ones where we could get our hands on our work. You know, give me a diorama assignment and I'm a very happy camper. So the fact that the work is visual, the fact that the work is kinesthetic, that we're using our bodies. Another big thing is that it's spatial. You know, the ability to use spatial reasoning and really show how things fit together. You know, use scale to show, you know, here are the bigger ideas, here are the smaller supporting ideas. Moving things around on the page so that I can create these sort of integrated drawings for my clients. They're not linear. You know, they're made up of a lot of lines, but there is not much about my work that sort of follows a straight line. And what I like to say is, when is the last time you solved a problem in a straight line? So many of today's problems are far more complex. Many of these conversations that I help support are far more complex, and drawing is really fantastic at being able to show those kind of complexities and interdependencies because it's spatial, because you can put the next idea anywhere on this piece of paper. Another thing I love about this work is that that it's physical, that you're making physical drawings. And when you're making drawings, you're making choices. I chose this marker. I chose to put this figure on the piece of paper. I chose to place this figure on the center of the page. Next, I chose another marker to draw the eyeball. I chose to create these lines in this third color coming out from the eye. So each one of those choices that I'm making meaning for myself. And that's why I think visual thinking, just for your own processing, for your own ability to work out complex problems, prioritize, make decisions, clarify your thinking, create clear communications, to think critically, all of these things are really, 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 really supported by this making of choices as you make a drawing. And that's absolutely what the Idea Shaper book is all about, is helping you become more sophisticated in how you make those choices. I do think that most folks are actually very, very sophisticated when it comes to viewing images. We have an incredibly visual culture that, only is getting more so as we have more and more media in front of us. And the issue is that most of us don't feel like we can produce images. So, really the Idea Shapers is about, getting these ideas into your own hands. So you have this idea of, I understand how I'm using color. I understand how I'm using scale. How does this type of line convey something different than this type of line versus this type of line? All these different choices we make, making these physical drawings. So connected to that is this idea that when we are making physical drawings, we're able to tune into these physical cues we're getting from our body. So I certainly have had this experience, maybe you have too, where you're working on something and you start and you sit down and you're just in that creative tension. You're just in that spot where like nothing feels right. You want to kind of crawl out of your skin. And you sit there, you persevere, you work on the work, and at some point things shift. Some little puzzle piece snaps into place. And there's that wave of relief. There is that sense of something has just been made clear, and a new level of understanding. And so when I'm sitting there making drawings, when you're making drawings, we really have this beautiful opportunity to tune into those physical cues and see where we're at with something. I think it's really easy to sort of try to think our way through everything, that everything has to be, figured out with this hunk of stuff up here. And no doubt, that's incredibly important. Right now I think we're going through this like super neurocentric time where everything is about what we're studying in the brain. And, I'm incredibly thankful for this work and for the study and the new discoveries. But right now we're kind of treating people like brains in jars. And we do have these full physical bodies that tell us a lot. Listen to our bodies, look out for those tensions, look out for that ease, look out for the goosebumps. When you really hit on something and there's just those goosebumps and that like, oh, I've really hit on, I've really hit on something. So, that's another opportunity to drawing that I absolutely adore. And, one of the things about that physicality that I think is like so basic and so beautiful is that very simple act of getting those ideas out of your head and onto a piece of paper. That now you can see what you're working on from a new perspective. So just that tangibility is very much what I'm doing in my work as a graphic facilitator. Folks come into a meeting and, you go into that meeting with your sense of like, I know what we should do. I've got the answer. And you kind of sit there waiting until you can give your idea. And that's, so much of your listening ability is really preoccupied with just trying to get your 2 cents out there on the table, get your cards out on the table. And what's so great about being a graphic facilitator, to supporting groups that way, is that I'm really making that conversation tangible. So once you come in, you put your cards on the table, and I get them up there on the drawing, you're able to listen to the conversation in a whole different way. Because you see your, that sort of ephemeral hunk of a meeting, that little piece of the conversation made physical, made tangible, because it's up here on the chart. And I do think that just the tangibility, that simple thing of, out of your head onto the paper is probably, well, it's my personal best antidote to overwhelm. And I am certainly somebody who feels overwhelmed most of the time. So I'm very thankful that, it just takes paper and pen to be able to get this stuff out of here onto there. Lastly, absolutely beautiful thing that through conversations after the Idea Shaper has been published, and probably means I should sneak it into there in a new edit, is something that was so completely core to me that I absolutely took it for granted. It's completely this sort of blind spot, and that's this idea. If you can see it on the frame, I'm not sure if it's cut off or not, but this idea of tapping into your intuition. I think this does have a lot to do with those physical cues. But this tapping into your intuition is, this really is giving yourself the space, giving yourself a blank piece of paper, and, have this thing, whatever it is you're mulling over, is it a decision to be made? Is it a problem to be solved? Is it a piece of communication you're trying to clarify? Is it something you're just, something difficult you're trying to tackle? Is it a project that you need to kind of wrangle and figure out the pieces of? Any of these things, it's really that opportunity that you give yourself, that sheet of paper, these simple tools, and tap into that intuition and see what arrives. See what arises in this drawing as you're making it. I think there's a whole lot we know within ourselves, and that, so often we use all these sort of external things. This is a huge reason why I am such a fan of emergent drawings. It's why the lab is created with such an emergent agenda. It's the idea that, we're going to figure out what we need together in the lab. You're going to figure out what you need when you sit down and work with this blank sheet of paper. I think very often people want to give themselves some kind of external construct, give me a structure. I'm going to do a SWOT analysis, or for some reason everything else is leaving my brain at the moment. But say you're working on a SWOT analysis and you've got these 4 boxes: the strengths, the weaknesses, the opportunities, the threats. You're like, okay, I'm now going to make a SWOT analysis. And what happens so often is you just click into that fill in the box thinking. It's like, okay, I'm doing the assignment. I'll get these down. I'll get these down. I'll get these down. I'll get these down. Done. And that's a directed drawing. That's when you know what the shape is and you're filling your ideas into that shape. Again, with this idea of intuition and this idea of what's internal, the beautiful thing is these emergent drawings. It really is the gift of a blank sheet of paper. It's messy. It can be ugly. It can be awkward. There's the kind of drawings we're making are not about being beautiful. They're not about being perfect. They're just about kind of getting stuff out and moving it around. So often those emergent drawings can feel really awkward and not be elegant in any way, but that is their beauty. That truly is their beauty, is that, you're giving yourself just that kind of space. You're giving yourself that space, that time, that blank piece of paper to see what emerges, to see what sort of comes from your intuition and where it takes you. So that's our Studio Tuesday. Definitely hope that you'll take some time, you'll grab that blank sheet of paper and, get yourself some simple pens and see what emerges. Just see what happens. I know that I've been excited to work on, to participate in Inktober, which is really meant to be a month of improving one's inking skills, created by cartoonists who just wanted more practice. And I know that I really love this opportunity to, just not be not be drawing for a client or a book, and sort of say, hey, I've got this opportunity. What would I like to create? How would I like to use my tools in new ways? What kind of drawings can I make? So this is my gigantic drawing for today's Inktober, and I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next Studio Tuesday.